everyone, this is Jamie, the bearded guru with not much of a beard, but it's coming back. Yeah, I had to shave it for this coronavirus going on, just to be on the safe side. But first off, welcome. Thank you for checking out my video. This video is actually going to be on cold calling. Does it work? What does it do? How we can do it better? And I know the minute you hear cold calling, you hear this. For those that you don't know, that is the Jaws theme. If you haven't watched it, check it out. But I digress. So cold calling, does it still work? How you can do it, and what goes on from there. So first off, again, my name is Jamie. I am the CEO of Beard Marketing. Again, unfortunately, the beard is not there, but it will be back. And I would like to welcome you to our channel if this is your first time watching us. If not, great, and I welcome you back. I have been doing sales for going on a little over 20 years, both in the in-home sales, which is door-to-door sales, as well as over the phone and digital marketing, of course. Beard Marketing is a white label partnership, and we partner with you guys to make sure you're successful when you are going out and gathering clients. So let's get into the cold calling. Does it work? Now, I get asked this question quite a bit, which is why I decided to do a video on it, as well as this session for the podcast on if it actually works. And, you know, when you think about it and you go with your gut, conventional wisdom tells us that, the Jordan Belfort way of aggressively cold calling like they did on Wall Street has gone away. And I don't disagree with that. 20, 30 years ago when those Wall Street guys were just cold calling folks, they had different technology. The buyer's behavior was different. Trust was easily explained over the phone because that's how people were used to doing it. However, recently, with everybody moving now into the digital marketing age and the internet to make those buying decisions, maybe selling cold call at a first glance might not be the way to go, and it might seem obsolete, which is why I am not surprised at all when I see on Facebook or YouTube or I get emails that cold calling is dead. It should be dead, buried, and written off. I, however, disagree. I think cold calling should not be dead just yet. I honestly believe that there is winning aspects that can happen via cold outreach, and it definitely will help you in this new relationship era that we're currently in right now. With that being said, you must know how to do it correctly for it to work for you correctly. So I'm actually going to break down where we see the current state of cold calling and how you guys can either do it yourself or hire a sales rep, and that can use the cold calling to be positive outreach, and you no longer feel like this when you have to pick up that phone, because nobody wants to get eaten by Jaws. I mean, let's be serious about that for a minute. Nobody really wants to be eaten by Jaws. Now, like I said, I'm going to break it down. So in our first section, let's actually look at numbers for the cold calling. And this is where we get scientific about it, because that debate and the argument about to call or not to call is the question of the day comes out to be a fierce one. So let's check out the significance of cold calling in 2018 to 2019 to 2020, and if it'll continue being where it needs to be at. Now, according to marketingcharts.com, they published both in October 2018 and in October of 2019, stating almost the exact same thing. Referrals in 2018 rounded the top off at 77% of the top methods for sales. Number two, however, was cold calls on the phone, calling people. That rounded off at 46%. Number three was group sales, so the webinars that folks like WP Elevation, Mavericks, and and other groups like that put on was 39% for reaching prospects and selling. 30% went to trade shows. 29% went to social selling, which would be your Facebook and your Instagram. 23% went into email campaigns. 13% went into drop-ins, so you stop in and talk to somebody about doing their marketing or whatnot. 8% went into other. So the other category of 8%. That was in 2018. Now in 2019, it hasn't changed much. The aspects of where it's at now is almost exactly the same as where it was in 2018, which leads us to believe that overall, the selling aspects has not changed. So the big takeaway that we should take from here, that although cold calling does have its bumps and bruises that comes with it, the people that tell you it's dead have not told you the whole story. Making calls, doing those calls consistently has got to be one of the top things to reach out to people, and that your sales activities can do makes it one of the most important activities. Okay, so reaching out to the warm leads, the cold leads, everything, it all happens on the phone. Now, another surprising little fact that you can tie into what you're doing when you do cold calls is that 77% of buyers have responded positively to an email from a prospective vendor in the last 12 months. So taking those two together work. They are still alive. Again, does cold calling work? Does cold email work? Are actually two different questions, but they still overall have the same response factor to it. Tie them in together, even better. Okay. Nobody likes a pushy, slimy salesman, but cold calling is not dead. Now, what we are seeing in the industry right now, either with our Done For You Sold program that has our own cold callers or cold callers we train, or just other cold callers we work with, we see people closing about 25% of unqualified leads over the phone and over 50% of qualified leads. 50%. That is huge when you're talking about digital marketing, where the conversion rate is so much smaller off of digital marketing. 25 to 50% is enormous when it comes to unqualified and qualified leads. Now, we're not going to say that, cold calls convert better than someone that calls you and reaches out to you, like a referral. That's not what we're saying. We're not saying that it does better than referrals or even necessarily some digital marketing. However, you have to look at the variables that are in there to see how your cold outreach is going to work and see what really, really happens to it. Because if you don't have a high quality list, cold calls aren't going to happen for you, which is why most people think cold calls are dead. Alrighty? Now, another big takeaway that we're going to get from this is that the majority of B2B decision makers believe that sales reps are unprepared for sales calls. This is another reason why it fails. You have to get your people prepared. So it does get a bad woogie woogie boogie feeling from it, from a lot of salespeople. And I know, because I train them. They're not ready. They don't know how to do it. So they get very, very anxious and scared of that cold call. So make sure that they're prepared for that cold outreach and done in their training, because if they're not, that failure falls on you as the owner of the company. So you really need to sit down and figure out the best way to train your sales teams so they can empower the reps to do better on their phone. Better lists, better phone systems, better all of that. Okay? So I think out of this section, the biggest key takeaway that you need to take from this is cold calling is not dead. And instead of saying, why will cold calling work for me? You should ask yourself, how do I make cold calling work? Because again, 92% of customer interactions will happen over the phone with our style companies. Phones are still very valuable. Okay. If you want to help set your sales rep up for success, do not give them unrealistic quotas. Another pro tip: keep your quotas realistic that allows them to crush it. Okay, now we are going to move into some of the other things I enjoy about cold calling. So we are going to talk about the do's and the do nots, and what you shouldn't do and what you should do for cold calling. Because again, nobody wants to do this. They want the happy dance. So one of the first things that needs to happen when you do cold calling is make sure they're warm. You know, the gone are the days where a cold caller will pump out 2 or 3 or 400 calls a day. Don't do that to your sales reps. Do not do that to your callers. Just set them up to be successful and let them do a quick warm up process. We will be including our warm up process below for Process Street, but give them the opportunity to warm them up. How do you warm them up, you may ask? A good, nice search on LinkedIn. Look at if they're tweeting or where the CEO is hanging out. Is it LinkedIn? Is it Facebook? Is it Instagram? So on and so forth. So give it time to warm up. Okay. Make sure that they do the calls. They don't need to spend a ton of time on here, but they need to look at them a little bit so they're not just on the phone speaking to somebody for nothing. Okay. Apologize, I jumped a step. Do let your personality shine. Like, I'm a very personable person. I love talking to people, especially on the phone. I love talking to people, and I let that out. I buy into what I sell, and because I buy into what I sell, I'm very happy. I'm not awkward and robotic. Hi, my name's Jamieh from Beard Marketing. I'd love to speak with you about some of your marketing needs. No, I'm very warm. I have that personality that goes. And because of that, it really, really engages your prospect. It really does. It goes a long way to crack the jokes. Let them know that you're not just going to try to sell them. You want to get to know them. Okay, you are sowing the seeds of that blooming tree of a relationship. All right, so here are some starters that we have. I notice that in X City, you guys just had a big storm come through. How is everything over there? Did you guys have a lot of damage? XYZ. Okay, number 2, man, it is so cold outside right now. I am surprised you made it to work. But then again, we're from the Midwest, so we're used to negative 30 below. As you know, things like that. There are some conversation starters that work out extremely well. Let me throw you let me throw you another one. Let me see. Another great one that I love to do is, what are you looking forward to right now? Kind of get that rapport going, keep it open-ended. And if you're talking to a CEO, this is another one I really love. Have you read any really good books lately? I gotta say, I'm currently reading Pitch This or Story Brand, things like that. And I'm really enjoying those. Is there some that you could recommend for what you're doing? It segues it into a discussion, which again removes that uncomfortability. Okay? Alrighty. Now, don't. Now we're going to go into a don't. Do not let your sales reps or yourself freestyle. I am a big believer that you do not need to be robotic and you shouldn't sound like you're reading from a script. However, you need to have a guideline. All right? You have to have a guideline for your calls, and that way you can cut down a little bit on the uhs and the ums and the how so. We will also be dropping our cold calling script below. So make sure you check it out. And you've gotta be able to have some kind of a script. You don't have to follow it word for word, but it's got to guide you to where you need to be at. Okay. So don't. Now we're going to do our second don't. Boom. You know, don't keep them on the phone too long. You really, they're busy. You're calling them out of you're breaking their routine. You're calling them out of the blue. You don't want to keep them on the phone too long. Your whole goal should be able to get that booking meeting and demos and all of that, like, whoosh, zip down as little as possible. You want to get your product or service into that prospect's hands as quickly as possible. So don't get them on the phones multiple times. Try to get them into a one, maybe two calls. Don't go so much past that. Make sure that you have an email address that you can send it to, so you can send them relevant information on your service and whatnot. That'll keep them in your email list even after the call's over. And maybe they don't move forward, and so they, keep them on there. So don't keep them on the phone for a super long time. Okay. Also, on to my next don't that we have. This is not a numbers game. Don't treat it that way. Do not treat this as a numbers game. You will never win. You will not be successful. Back in the day, you used to be able to pop out 200 calls and you could really, really nail it. But cold calling is not a numbers game, okay? You really have to make sure that you are on a very nice, even flow where they don't feel like they're just another number to you. Um, you know, Brian Tracy, who is a sales expert, has very much recommends the frequently, like the pausing, taking your breaks, do cold calling, allowing your prospects to tell you their story and their problems, and clue them in on their pain points without you just punching them through a funnel. Okay. So, like, research them, warm them up, and don't treat it like a numbers game. It's not going to help. All right. Now we're going to go into a positive do. So after we're at this point, you need to make sure you send a follow-up email. All right. So sending thoughtful emails really shows that you're committed to them. All right. Now, of course, make sure you reach out to the ones that definitely want to make appointments. They're like, yep, send me something, let's get going. So yeah, definitely make sure you have that. But also, make sure you reach out to the ones that are on the fence or might have just said, hey, look, I don't know if I want to move forward or not. Give them information, let them read over it and think it over. Make sure you have some templates designed out for it. Make sure that you use like a proper way to address and categorize your prospects and where they're at, depending on the stage of where they're at, qualification, conversation, so on and so forth. We'll actually going to include a one down below that you can use through Airtable that you can use. That'll work. Or you can build one or use something like Infusionsoft, Close.io, things like that. All right. Make sure you have these templated up. That way you don't have to sit down and write messages from scratch. All right. We're going to, like I said, include the Airtable CRM that we have, but hopefully that'll help out. And alrighty then. All right, now on to another do. Make sure that you're watching how long you're on the phone. So, to be profitable and to make sure that things are working, you have to measure it. Well, the way that you measure it is to watch how long you're calling and talking to people. Make sure that you're tracking all of these details. That you want to make sure that you know what your activities are and track them, and you can roll on from there. All right. So that's another one. Now, here is an interesting concept that you can tie in with how we're doing cold calls. All right. So Don't just call them at random. All right. So, we talked about the quota, making a quota that is not ridiculously high. And, that could be how many calls you're doing or how long you're going to be on the phones. All right. Now, tying into that, making sure that you're going to call them when they're going to answer. Like, that a dental office isn't going to answer at 8 o'clock in the morning. No, they're opening, they're getting ready, so on and so forth. So make sure that they're consistently done at the same time. Don't just do blind calls. All right. Just make sure that you have an idea on what you're going to do for that part. Okay. Another big don't is don't freak out because something doesn't work correctly. All right. You are going to stumble. You are going to fall. So don't freak out and don't feel like you're not capable of doing this. All right. So and then I've got one more do, because I love leaving things on a positive note. Make sure you leave a voicemail. I have seen so many people call me for a sales as a CEO, and they don't leave a voicemail, and I don't call them back because I don't know who they are. And the way I view it is, if you don't leave me a voicemail, then I'm honestly not going to call you back, because it wasn't that important for you to leave a really good voicemail. So again, underneath this video, there will be a Google folder where you can get your call scripts, you can get voicemails, and we will give you some cold email templates. You just need to make sure that you change it your way. And as Troy Dean likes to say, season to taste. Make sure that it matches your business and change what you need to change on there. So do not worry about leaving them a voicemail. In fact, leave them a voicemail. You want them to encourage, or you want them to feel encouraged to call you or connect with you. Because some of these guys are busy. So make sure you reach out. Guys and gals are busy. So make sure you reach out to them and leave a voicemail if you do. So let me know below if you think cold calling will work for your company. And if not, let me know why. I'd love to hear from you. And, we enjoy helping you guys. So if you have any questions on cold calling or cold emailing, hit me up, let me know, because I want to know how you're going to approach your cold calls for Q2, Q3, Q4 of this year in 2020 and moving into 2021, how you're going to do it. I think that, cold calling has definitely changed. And there's a really good positive movement with that. So let me know what you guys think, and make sure you leave a comment below, get the information below, and I will catch you guys on the flip side.